What would you sacrifice for the truth when love and loyalty stand against each other in a web of hidden secrets? Welcome to Happiness of Love, your daily dose of K-dramas. Get ready to fall in love with unforgettable stories. Can you tell us where are you listening from? The clatter of the gavel echoed like the gunshot that marked the beginning of the end, signaling an urgent shift in Samuel Choi's meticulously crafted world. One minute he was a decorated prosecutor at the zenith of his career, drowning in the thrill of justice served, and the next, he found himself standing in the cold, sterile interrogation room facing the unthinkable, a face he thought he would never see again. The air was thick with tension as Samuel caught sight of Evelyn Park, her eyes a storm of defiance and vulnerability. 8 years had dulled the edges of their haunting memories, yet the moment their gazes locked, all those long-buried feelings erupted, clawing their way to the surface like desperate ghosts. Evelyn had once been the center of his universe, a radiant enchantress whose laughter still lingered in his mind like a bittersweet melody. But the weight of the years between their last embrace and this very moment would crush lesser souls. Her presence was a revelation, a jarring reminder of dreams shattered and a future lost to the shadows of the past. In the stark lighting of that room, her beauty was no less radiant, yet marred by the palpable storm clouds of suspicion surrounding her. The news of her arrest accused of murdering a prominent art collector had hit Samuel like a sledgehammer, sending him reeling into a whirlwind of emotions he had long deemed irrelevant in his line of work. "Evelyn," he said, his voice a mix of disbelief and anger, "you need to explain yourself." "Samuel, you have to listen," Evelyn pleaded, her voice trembling yet resolute. "I didn't do it. I swear I'm innocent." Her hands were raised, half a plea, half a defense, as if to shield herself from the tidal wave of his piercing gaze, one that had once looked upon her with unadulterated love. But years of heartbreak and the reality of their separation had turned that love into a weapon, and the ring of desperation in her tone only fueled his internal conflict. For a moment, it felt as though time had stopped. Memories rushed back, each one a dagger striking deeper, their passionate debates over art, the soft whispers shared under the moonlight, the day she vanished, leaving him empty, unknowing, and unprepared for the emotional chaos that would unfurl. The anger he had buried over the years now roared back, pulsating beneath his cool, professional veneer. Had she really come back into his life only to be the prime suspect in a case that could ruin him? Determined to remain the stoic prosecutor, he clenched his jaw. "There's no room for nostalgia here. You have to be aware of the implications this has. The evidence against you is not just circumstantial. It's damning." He rifled through the folder, pushing it across the table with as much force as his rising ire could muster. The photographs of the crime scene, splashes of blood against a canvas, a shattered frame lying carelessly askew, filled him with dread. "You were the last person seen with him." Evelyn's eyes darkened. Those glimmers of the past they once shared were obliterated by the enormity of the betrayal wrapped in this accusation. He saw the pulse in her throat quicken, the way her breath hitched as she fought to present a calm facade. "I saw things, Samuel. Terrible things that could shatter the entire art community. I needed to protect you from this," she said, her voice escalating in fervor, now strained with desperation and fear. A new silence settled in, heavier than the oppressive gloom that filled the room. Samuel's heart raced as conflicting feelings wrestled within him. Could his own memories and emotions lead him astray? Could she really be innocent? Every instinct told him to proceed cautiously, yet every fiber of his being screamed for him to trust her. This was not merely a case, this was a connection resurrected in a moment of chaos, an unsettling truth that threatened to dismantle his entire belief system. As he prepared to confront the reality of Evelyn's situation and the echoes of their shared history, he felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. The walls of the interrogation room became a cage, trapping them within the currents of unresolved emotion and rising tension, both unaware of the calamity that awaited them, intertwining their fates inextricably once more. Samuel was jolted back to the present by the realization that this case was far from straightforward. It was a labyrinth, fraught with peril and secrets, and it didn't take a seasoned prosecutor to know they were both ensnared in its deadly web, spiraling towards a climax that could either save or destroy them both. Determined to separate his emotions from his duty, Samuel Choi dove headfirst into the high-profile murder case against Evelyn Park. But as he meticulously analyzed the evidence, he found himself haunted by memories he thought he had long buried. The relentless rhythm of his office, punctuated by the clicking of keyboards and the murmur of colleagues discussing cases, felt suddenly stifling as the image of Evelyn loomed uninvited in his mind. The past 8 years had been a shield against vulnerability, his towering ambition and icy exterior a fortress he had carefully constructed, yet now the walls were trembling under the weight of her re-emergence. While reviewing the autopsy report, Samuel found discrepancies that gnawed at his instincts, details that seemed carefully crafted to heighten the stakes against her. It was as if someone had meticulously designed a narrative in which Evelyn was the villain, yet each fragment of evidence contradicted another, leading to an unsettling complexity he struggled to comprehend. Digging deeper into the case, he scrutinized the grainy surveillance footage that captured a fleeting glimpse of Evelyn near the scene of the crime, but the ambiguity of her presence only intensified his torment. There was no unmistakable proof tying her to the act, only shadows that danced provocatively around the truth. The more he delved into the investigation, the more Samuel's instincts told him she was cloaking a far deeper secret, something far more dangerous than just a murder charge, leading him to ponder who exactly she was protecting by staying silent. Frustration bubbled beneath his professional facade as he encountered Evelyn in court, the once vibrant woman now ensnared in a web of her own making, refusing to mount a defense that could have exonerated her. Each encounter turned into a battle of wills, his heated glances clashing against her steely demeanor, leaving him both infuriated and bewildered. Meanwhile, the air around them crackled with forgotten emotions rising to the surface like ghosts from the past, memories of laughter and shared dreams lurking just out of reach. Outside the courtroom, whispers of their history began to permeate through the bustling corridors of the courthouse, forcing Samuel to navigate a minefield of scrutiny as the ambitious journalist Hannah Lee unearthed details that drew a connection between the two. Hannah's sharp investigative skills and keen intuition about their former relationship began to strain Samuel further. She was relentless, her camera capturing candid moments, her pen poised to expose the fragility of his heart along with the rapid unraveling of esteemed prosecutor Samuel Choi. Each day, walking past the flood of reporters hungry for a headline, he felt the weight of their expectations crushing his resolve, and the thought of his personal life thrust into the limelight quickened his pulse with visceral anxiety. He stood in the center of this storm, the prosecutor desperate to serve justice, yet shackled by an undying sense of loyalty to the woman he once loved, even as she morphed into the target of his investigation. Each time he examined the evidence, every flicker of doubt drove Samuel deeper into confusion, a battle between his role as a prosecutor and the remnants of the man who was once bound heart and soul to Evelyn. Little by little, the lines blurring between duty and desire urged him to confront the shadows of their past, but just as he felt ready to turn back the clock, he was reminded of the fragile glass that could shatter their future. It was becoming increasingly difficult merely to focus on the facts when the emotions tied to Evelyn blurred the clarity he so desperately sought. Thus, each night he returned home to a silent apartment filled with the echoes of long-dead dreams, leaving him questioning not just her involvement in the crime, but the choices that led them both to this precarious junction of fate. Samuel stepped out of the dimly lit courtroom, the air heavy with tension as he caught sight of Evelyn. She stood by the staircase, her features sharp against the harsh fluorescent lights, embodying both elegance and vulnerability. As he approached her, the memories surged like a tide how their laughter once echoed in art galleries, the spark in her eyes when she'd share her passion for restoration, and the painful silence that followed when she had disappeared from his life so abruptly. He couldn't shake the feeling that she carried the weight of both their past and the present turmoil. "You need to tell me what happened that night," he demanded, barely masking the urgency in his voice as he closed the distance between them. Evelyn met his gaze with a mixture of defiance and sorrow, her voice barely above a whisper as she responded, "You don't want to know, Samuel. Some truths are too dangerous to uncover." The warning hung in the air like a dark cloud, and he felt an unsettling chill crawl along his spine, the pulsating heartbeat of his unresolved feelings thrumming louder than ever. As they exchanged heated words, the world around them faded away, the only sound the echo of their conversation and the rhythm of their racing hearts. "Why do you refuse to defend yourself?" Samuel pressed, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. She sighed, her breath catching in her throat as painful memories flickered in her eyes. "Because protecting you is all I can do now," she revealed, her words laced with anguish. He wanted to reach out, to bridge the chasm that 8 years had carved between them, but the weight of duty clouded his intentions. That night, Samuel found himself in the solitude of his dim apartment, the bottle of whiskey in his hand a futile attempt to drown the memories swirling in his mind. The amber liquid burned his throat as he thought back to the nights he'd spent with Evelyn, the passionate discussions about art and the dreams they had shared. Their romance had ignited like wildfire, but the abruptness of her departure had left ashes in its wake, and as he swirled the whiskey in his glass, he felt the deep pang of loss all over again. He recalled the days she had walked away, leaving him with lingering questions and a heart burdened with shadows, a reminder of what once was and what could never be. Meanwhile, Evelyn sat in her small studio, surrounded by unnoticed canvases, the soft hues of the paintings absorbing her troubled thoughts. Just then, the soft ping of her phone pierced the silence, a message lighting up the screen that sent a shiver through her. "Stay quiet, or you'll regret it." The threat pulsed in her mind, sending a rush of panic through her veins as she closed her eyes, recalling the dark figures that seemed to surface from the corners of her memory. She had thought she was safe, that her past was behind her, yet the specters of danger now loomed large, entwining with her desperate desire to shield Samuel from a truth that could ruin him. As Samuel returned to his research the next day, pieces of Evelyn's story started to fall into place, threading a complex web of deceit tied to a more significant conspiracy than he had initially imagined. The focus of his investigation began to shift towards the stolen art trade, and as he pieced together the facts, the web only grew thicker, leading him directly to Lucas Kim. Lucas, the powerful art dealer whose charming smile concealed a tumultuous undercurrent of menace, began to emerge as a key player in the mystery surrounding the murder case. Samuel's heart raced as he found more connections, each thread of evidence revealing the darkness lurking beneath the surface of the seemingly cultured and artistic world they inhabited. The deeper he dug, the more he unraveled. A sense of urgency swelled in him as he imagined what would happen if he were unable to protect Evelyn from the roots of this deceitful industry. In the wake of his growing determination, he could feel the stakes rising, and with every passing moment, the line between his duty as a prosecutor and his love for Evelyn blurred dangerously. The tension in Samuel Choi's office was palpable as he replayed his brief encounter with Lucas Kim in his mind. The opulent art dealer had approached him with an unsettling confidence that struck Samuel as utterly insincere. The luxury of Lucas's tailored suit and the polished charm of his smile could not mask the sinister undertones of their conversation. Underneath the veneer of civility, Lucas had offered Samuel a deal that felt more like a threat than a friendly gesture, a chance to clear his hands of the murky waters surrounding Evelyn Park in exchange for information on a separate corruption scandal. Samuel's resolve hardened as he recalled the coldness in Lucas's voice when he said that dropping the case against Evelyn might just save him a world of trouble. Samuel, relentless in his pursuit of justice, shook his head at the memory, feeling the weight of Lucas's implication that he might willingly abandon the very ideals he had built his life around. He believed that justice shouldn't be negotiable, especially not when it intersected with the life of the woman he once loved. Yet, doubt lingered at the back of his mind, like a persistent whisper urging him to reconsider, but he wouldn't allow himself such weakness. What shocked him even more was how Lucas slipped away, leaving behind an unsettling concoction of fear and intrigue. As he leaned back in his chair, he could feel Daniel Carter's eyes scrutinizing him from across the room, his best friend and fellow prosecutor, not one to let emotional entanglements cloud judgment. Daniel's brow furrowed slightly as he pointedly reminded Samuel that his history with Evelyn should not dictate his actions in the courtroom, a sentiment that only sowed deeper turmoil in Samuel's heart. It was as if Daniel had laid bare Samuel's vulnerabilities, exposing the raw nerve of a passion buried deep beneath his otherwise stoic demeanor. Samuel never wished to mix love with his career, yet Evelyn's presence was like a storm twisting through his thoughts, relentless and consuming. Meanwhile, Evelyn, feeling the heat of Lucas's looming presence herself, set out on her own clandestine investigation. Each brush stroke of her memory brought back vivid recollections of her days spent with Samuel, but now she was determined to unearth the truth behind the murder that had ensnared her. With nothing but her resolve as her compass, she meticulously began to trace the last known transactions of the murder victim, her heart racing at the thought of what she might discover. The atmosphere around her felt thick as she huddled in her modest studio, surrounded by fading masterpieces and the scent of turpentine that lingered in the air, a bittersweet reminder of her art and her past. She discovered that an illegal painting, the very heart of the murder case, was entangled in the victim's final dealings, whispering its secrets in the darkness. The realization hit her hard. She wasn't just a mere suspect in a convoluted plot, she was a target, her life intertwining unnervingly with betrayal and danger that she couldn't yet comprehend. As the specter of fear enveloped her, Evelyn steeled herself, acknowledging the gravity of the situation. Now more than ever, the stakes had raised, not just for herself but for Samuel as well. The walls of her life were closing in around her, and as she pieced together the grim puzzle, her mind drifted back to that fateful day 8 years ago, the day she had chosen to disappear, and uncertainty gnawed at her. Each fragment of evidence she uncovered led her closer to the hidden truths that could shatter both their lives, every step reminding her that the love she once shared with Samuel was intertwined with secrets they hadn't yet unraveled. Whatever lay ahead, she knew the time for hiding was over, and with a determined breath, she prepared to face the consequences of a past that refused to stay buried, not just for her sake but for Samuel's as well. As the sun dipped below the skyline of Seoul, casting a hue of golden orange upon the city, Samuel and Evelyn found themselves in a dimly lit cafe, far removed from the bustling streets. The air was thick with unspoken words and unresolved emotions as they tentatively forged an alliance against the unseen enemy threatening Evelyn's life. Samuel's heart raced with urgency, knowing that time was not on their side. Just hours earlier, an anonymous assailant had made it clear that someone wanted to silence Evelyn permanently. He recalled the moment vividly, the sharp glint of the blade under the flickering streetlight, and he knew he would do anything to protect her. He arrived just in time, shoving her to the ground as the knife swished past them like a wrathful gust of wind, but the encounter left an indelible mark on his resolve. He said that no matter her reservations, whether she wanted his help or not, he wouldn't let her face this alone. There was a weight to his words, a promise that resonated deeply within Evelyn, compelling her to nod in silent agreement. Their collaboration was uneasy at first, as they struggled to put aside the years of hurt and betrayal that separated them. Yet, the sheer magnitude of the case forced them to focus on the task at hand, retracing the steps of the victim, a renowned art collector whose last known movements were shrouded in mystery. Staring at the scattered evidence on the table before them, Samuel couldn't shake the tension in the air, a symphony of nostalgia and longing wrapped delicately around their attempts to communicate. With every shared glance and hesitant brush of fingers as they pored over documents, he felt old feelings rise to the surface, yet buried beneath them was the fear of vulnerability. Evelyn, fighting her own emotions, immersed herself in the investigation, poring over receipts and transaction records in search of anything that could lead them to the truth. As they deciphered a hidden ledger that unveiled illegal art transactions, the office flickered with the tension of their existence together. Amidst the unfolding narrative of betrayals hidden within the art world, Samuel began to notice nuances in Evelyn's expressions, the way her eyes darted when she found something unexpected, the quirk of her lips when she recognized a name in the ledger that seemed to tighten the air between them. He found himself struggling to concentrate, pulled by the currents of their shared past entwining with their precarious present. Old emotions swelled, transforming hostility into a charged silence, one that crackled with unspoken desires. Yet, just as trust began to blossom between them, the universe conspired against them. The revelation struck like a thunderclap. New evidence emerged abruptly, puncturing the fragile bubble around them. Evelyn's fingerprints had been linked to the murder weapon. Samuel's heart sank as he read the words on the report, the cold reality bashing against the warmth he had felt just moments before. He felt a chill wash over him, a conflict brewing deep within his. Instinct told him she was innocent, but the implications of this evidence were damning. As he turned to Evelyn, he found her expression taut with apprehension. She responded by saying that it couldn't be possible, an alarmed disbelief lacing her voice. The truth felt further out of reach than it had moments before, and as they exchanged solemn glances, the air became heavy with the enormity of their circumstances. Samuel clenched his fists, determination surging within him to unravel this hopeless mess. They were not just fighting for the truth, they were fighting for each other, and with every heartbeat, he realized just how much he needed her, how much he had always needed her, even through the bitter years apart. Riding the surge of emotions and adrenaline, they vowed to dive deeper into the labyrinth of deception that ensnared their lives, praying that together they could unearth the truth before it consumed them both. Evelyn sat in her cold cell, the harsh fluorescent lights casting an artificial hue across her features, her eyes shadowed by despair. The clinking of metal bars echoed the tremors in her heart, her thoughts racing back to the life she had shattered and the love she had once shared. Samuel, now her adversary, was a mere breath away, yet he seemed worlds apart. The weight of evidence hung heavily in the air, but her thoughts remained tethered to the moments they had shared, the laughter, the dreams, the warmth of their intertwined fingers. Samuel faced a dilemma only he could truly understand. Could he trust the woman he had once loved so fiercely? With each day in this dire predicament, doubt gnawed at his resolve, a relentless pull that made his heart ache more than any courtroom battle ever could. Determined to clear her name, Samuel delved deeper into the murky waters of the case, a battleground of facts and emotions colliding in a storm that threatened to engulf him. He risked everything, leaking confidential information that danced on the precipice of legality, all to cast a glimmer of hope on the shadows surrounding Evelyn. When Daniel confronted him, his friend's voice was a brooding thunderclap. Daniel warned that emotions could cloud judgment, reminding him that Evelyn's return ignited a whirlwind of their past, one that had left scars deep within their souls. Samuel clenched his jaw, wrestling with the torrent of his internal struggle as he retorted, resolute in his belief that Evelyn could not be the murderer. Days blurred together, and he spiraled into a dogged pursuit of truth. Lucas Kim, the powerful art dealer ensnared in this labyrinthine plot, caught wind of Samuel's reckless investigations and approached him under the guise of friendly concern. In the opulent confines of his gallery, with paintings adorning the walls like silent witnesses to their conversation, Lucas leaned forward with a dangerous glint in his eye. He said that Samuel should tread carefully, insinuating that chasing the truth could bring about unwelcome consequences. The atmosphere stifled Samuel's resolve. The riches Lucas flaunted were mere facades, distracting from the sin buried beneath his polished exterior. Each interaction with Lucas was a game of chess, but this particular move felt heavily weighted, like a threat wrapped in a smile. Samuel's mind swirled with the implications of Lucas's warning, grappling with the creeping suspicion that he was in over his head. Back in her cell, Evelyn clung to her memories, drifting between hope and despair. The unforgiving reality of her situation chipped away at her spirit, but it was a moment of vulnerability spent with the cold, hard walls that finally brought forth her confession when Samuel visited her once more. With tear-stained cheeks and hands trembling like autumn leaves, she raised her eyes to him, knowing this was the moment to unveil her darkest truth. She said that 8 years ago, she hadn't left him of her own volition. She had been forced to disappear to protect him from the darkness she had unknowingly witnessed. The words flowed from her cracked lips like a river of pain, each syllable imbued with the gravity of secrets that had lain dormant for too long. At that instant, the past crashed into the present with the force of crashing waves. The gaping wounds of their shared history opened wide, leaving Samuel reeling in the aftermath. Caught in the storm of emotions that Evelyn's revelation conjured, Samuel's world spiraled, reality fracturing as pieces fell into place. He questioned every fragment of memory shared, now seen through the lens of hers, and what it meant for them now. Could it be possible that love had been shadowed by the very truth that had kept them apart? Each moment of their shared past replayed in his mind like a haunting melody, both sweet and sorrowful. With her words echoing in his thoughts, Samuel realized the stakes had reached new heights, more perilous than ever before. He had to uncover not just the truth behind the murder but also the truth buried within their hearts, as confusion and desire intertwined in a chaotic dance of destiny and deceit. Time was running out. The battle wasn't merely for Evelyn's innocence anymore, but for the fragmented shards of a love long thought lost. As the heavy weight of realization settled over Samuel, he stood in the dim light of his office, heart racing and hands trembling as he replayed Evelyn's painful confession in his mind. Each word echoed like a haunting melody, reminding him of the sacrifices she had made for him, sacrificing her own safety to protect him from the demons of his past. Guilt clawed at him, wrapping around his chest like an iron vice, constricting his breath. The truth was as bitter as it was liberating. Evelyn had shielded him from a dark reality, and now, knowing this, he felt more isolated than ever. He had to act before it was too late, and that meant reaching out to Hannah Lee, the ambitious journalist with a knack for discovering hidden truths. However, deep down, he questioned whether she could truly be trusted. Yet, Samuel knew that he had no other option. He called Hannah, his voice steady but urgent as he disclosed the bare essentials of the situation, all the while sensing the ticking clock echoing behind his words. As they met in a secluded cafe adorned with flickering candles and the scent of freshly ground coffee, he laid bare everything he had learned, every detail that might help them clear Evelyn's name. Hannah listened intently, her dark eyes widening as he recounted the tale of betrayal and deception, which felt heavier now that he understood the stakes were far greater than he had initially believed. She responded by saying that it sounded like a sensational story, one that could thrust her career into the limelight, but her desire for recognition was swiftly eclipsed by the gravity of the situation. Together, they plotted a course of action, targeting a crucial witness who had supposedly seen the real murderer that fateful night, and the name that surfaced was one Samuel could hardly believe, a former associate of Lucas Kim whose connections wove directly into the underbelly of the art world. With each passing moment, dread settled in the pit of Samuel's stomach like a stone, yet they pressed on, scrambling to locate the witness before he vanished into the shadows as so many had before. As they delved deeper, following leads that took them through dingy bars and concealed alleys, the determination in Samuel's heart transformed into a burning hope. But just as they were about to close in on their target, fate struck a devastating blow. The news came through a frantic call from Daniel, his voice uncharacteristically grave as he delivered the news that punctured through Samuel's resolve. The witness was dead, found in an abandoned building, his body discovered too late for them to uncover the truth he had clutched tightly within him. Panic surged within Samuel, drowning out the flickering wisps of hope he had built since teaming up with Hannah. With precious time slipping through his fingers like sand, Samuel's mind raced as he toyed with the most untenable idea that had been lurking in the shadows of his conscience. Breaking Evelyn out of custody suddenly seemed like the only solution, a reckless plan formed from desperation and love, and it gripped his heart as he weighed the risks. He knew executing it would mean crossing lines he once vowed never to breach, but as he gazed into Hannah's eyes, he felt a moment of clarity. He would not allow Evelyn to bear the weight of a crime she did not commit, especially knowing the truth of her sacrifices. She had already faced insurmountable challenges, and he could not abandon her now. Determined, Samuel orchestrated the break with precise planning, every moment steeped in tension as he recalled their past, the way they worked in rhythm and how their ambitions once intertwined. Now, however, he felt the air charged with an urgency fueled by a myriad of emotions. When the moment arrived, he barely recognized the man he had become, pushing through the cold, sterile atmosphere of the detention center, focused solely on freeing Evelyn. The walls felt as though they were closing in, but he marched forward, reminding himself of the depth of his feelings, buried beneath layers of duty and regret. As he unlocked the door to her holding cell, the sight of her trembling figure ignited a fire within him, a promise of defiance against fate itself. With a soft, reassuring gaze, he whispered that they would face the truth together, and despite the uncertainty looming over their heads, their hearts beat in tandem, ready to reclaim the lives they once lost. The tension in the air was palpable as Samuel stood in the dimly lit confines of the warehouse-turned-gallery, the scent of varnished wood and oil paint swirling around him like a choking fog. He had taken a gamble that would cost him everything, forging evidence to secure Evelyn's release on bail, yet his heart raced with a familiar thrill as he prepared to confront the master manipulator, Lucas Kim. The sound of their footsteps echoed as they made their way deeper into the gallery, Evelyn's presence beside him a flicker of warmth against the chill of uncertainty that enveloped them. He glanced at her, noting the determination etched on her features but also the shadows of fear lurking in her eyes. She had to understand the risk they were embracing, but he couldn't back down now. He could feel the gravity of each decision weighing heavily upon them as they moved towards the exhibit that housed the very artwork at the heart of the conspiracy. Upon reaching the gallery, the grandeur of Lucas's collection met their eyes. Illuminated by the soft glow of track lighting, the paintings felt alive, demanding attention, but their focus was singular. Lucas Kim stood at one end, his polished demeanor radiating confidence, a sly smile curling at the edges of his lips as if he had been expecting them all along. The moment their gazes locked, a shiver ran down Samuel's spine. Lucas's steely gaze seemed to peer directly into their intertwined fates. When Lucas taunted them, stating that he had always played his pieces well, Samuel took a step forward, his heart pounding as he demanded to know the truth behind Evelyn's persecution. He said that he knew Lucas was the orchestrator behind the darkness that surrounded their lives, ready to expose him, pinning their hopes on unraveling the tightly woven lies that had ensnared them. Lucas moved gracefully, almost like a figure from one of his paintings, and without missing a beat, he confessed. "The murder was never about who you think it was, Samuel. It was a solution to a problem I could not allow to fester," Lucas said, his voice smooth and dripping with the arrogance of a man who never anticipated being cornered. In that moment, Samuel's heart sank, the admission ricocheted within him as he struggled to grasp the implications of Lucas's words. Evelyn looked at Samuel, her eyes wide with disbelief, the truth weighing heavily in the air between them, filling the room with a suffocating tension. But before they could react, Lucas revealed the trap he had set for Samuel, smirking as he revealed that he had already framed him, ensuring that the very institution Samuel had dedicated his life to would turn against him. "Do you really think you can walk away clean, Samuel? You're the easy blame when this all unravels," Lucas taunted, his grin widening like a snake about to strike. Panic surged through Samuel as the realization hit him. The sound of sirens echoed through the streets outside the gallery, growing louder, and in that instant, clarity broke through the haze of confusion. He grabbed Evelyn's hand, squeezing it tightly as he pulled her away from the gallery, both of them forced into the reality of their situation. The weight of her trust ignited something fierce within him, and he knew that escape was their only option. They pushed their way through the gallery's emergency exit, the cool night air hitting their flushed faces as they stepped into the shadows, sounds of confusion muffled behind them. Samuel and Evelyn dashed down the back alley, breathless, hearts racing not just from the fear of being discovered but from the intensity of their proximity, feeling the shared urgency of survival. They exchanged glances filled with unspoken gratitude and understanding, lost in the moment of chaotic clarity where the stakes had never been higher. As they navigated through the winding streets under the cover of darkness, Samuel was acutely aware of the intoxicating blend of fear and adrenaline coursing through their veins. The city buzzed around them, oblivious to the storm that had just unfolded. They darted into a hidden doorway, the musty scent of the storage room filling their lungs, and Samuel pressed his back against the wall, racing thoughts pooling in his mind. Their connection crackled like static electricity, the weight of unspoken emotions resurfaced as he caught his breath. He glanced at Evelyn, who was silently processing everything that had just transpired. She looked at him, her lips slightly trembling as she said that they needed to find a way to unravel Lucas's grip on their lives before they became mere figures in his master plan. In that moment, they both understood that their only chance lay in relying on each other as they prepared to confront the shadows of the past and fight against the brewing storm. With every thump of his heart echoing in the silence, they took a collective breath, poised to leap into the abyss together, knowing that love might just be the only lifeline they had left. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the city, Samuel and Evelyn found themselves in a dingy motel room, their sanctuary from the chaos that had enveloped their lives. The weight of uncertainty loomed over them like a storm cloud, yet an undeniable determination sparked between them. The air was thick with tension, and Evelyn's mind raced with fragments of memories and clues from the case. "There's a hidden painting at Lucas's estate," she said softly, her gaze penetrating through Samuel's steely facade. The moment hung in silence before Samuel responded, the the gravity of their situation reflected in his eyes as he said that they had to act quickly. They both understood the risks an encounter with Lucas could be their last, but the desire to uncover the truth outweighed their fears. Steeling themselves, they reviewed their plan in hushed tones, their hearts pounding with every word spoken. In the darkness of the room, Evelyn recalled the elaborate details of Lucas's estate, the grandiose yet sinister aura it exuded, and how it concealed the secrets of the art world they desperately needed to unveil. As Samuel adjusted his cufflinks with precision, she sensed the familiar intensity radiating from him, a blend of determination and unyielding protection that had drawn her to him years ago. They shared a brief glance, silent acknowledgments passing between them, unearthing their past while solidifying their resolve for the future. Under the cover of night, they approached the towering gates of Lucas Kim's estate, which stood ominously against the backdrop of the shimmering moonlight. The intricate ironwork glinted like the promise of danger, yet it only fueled their desire for justice. Samuel's heart beat faster as he led the way, reminding himself of his purpose, the wrongs that needed to be righted. Evelyn's breath hitched slightly as she moved beside him, the rush of nostalgia intermingling with her fear. "We can do this," he reassured her, his voice steady as they cracked open the wooden door, the creak echoing in the stillness. Inside, the opulence struck them. The lavish decor felt like a stark contrast to the dark intent lurking beneath its surface. As they made their way through the dimly lit corridors, every step seemed to echo their shared history. Samuel's thoughts drifted briefly to their moments together, the laughter, the love, the pain. As they reached the art gallery, Evelyn's pulse quickened. "It should be behind that false wall," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Samuel nodded, moving with purpose. His hands fumbled slightly as they levered the hidden panel aside, revealing the painting they had been searching for, a celebrated piece of stolen art, carefully wrapped and concealing evidence that could unravel Lucas's web of deceit. Just as they pulled the painting free, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed from the entrance. A chilling realization flooded over them. Lucas had arrived earlier than anticipated, each footfall growing louder as he made his way toward them, a macabre symphony of their impending confrontation. "I knew you'd come back for this," Lucas's voice slithered through the air as he stepped into the gallery, an unsettling smile curling his lips. Samuel's heart raced, not only from fear but from a renewed sense of purpose. He instinctively took a step closer to Evelyn, positioning himself between her and Lucas as if to shield her from the inevitable storm. Determined not to back down, Samuel faced Lucas, his gaze sharp and unwavering. "You're the one who should be worried. We have what we need to expose you," he declared fiercely. Lucas's smile faded, revealing the threatening undertone beneath his polished exterior. "You think you know everything, Samuel? Those who chase the truth often end up buried beneath it." But Samuel felt a surge of adrenaline as he discreetly activated his phone's recording function, knowing this moment could change everything. Evelyn, sensing the tension, held her breath, watching the confrontation unfold as their past intermingled with their fight for the future. In that charged moment, Lucas's demeanor shifted, revealing the monster lurking beneath the surface as he stepped closer, invading Samuel's space. "You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. I own this city, Samuel. The law doesn't apply to me," Lucas spat, the malice drenching his words. Samuel's jaw clenched tightly as he held his ground, reminding himself that this was not just about him, it was about Evelyn, about justice. "You might own the city, but the truth will always find a way to be heard," he replied steadily. Lucas sneered, and in that instant, Samuel felt an overwhelming sense of urgency. He wasn't just defending himself or Evelyn, he was battling an empire built on deception. As Lucas raised his hand, preparing to strike a blow against Samuel, Evelyn acted decisively, lunging forward to prevent the escape of the truth. They were a united front, the past mingling with the present, each moment tinged with the unspoken love and betrayal that had marked their journey. Samuel recorded the confrontation, capturing Lucas's rattling confession that could shatter the empire he had built. With the truth now in their grasp, they felt the intensity of hope rising like a phoenix from the ashes of their heartbreak. Just as Lucas understood he was cornered, the sound of sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer with every passing second. Panic flickered in his eyes, but he masked it quickly. "This isn't over," he hissed before making his escape through a hidden passage, shadow swallowing him whole. Almost instantly, they heard the police sirens approaching, and Samuel's heart raced at the thought of everything they had fought for: their lives, their love, their truth. They could hear the commotion outside as officers began to swarm the estate. With the painting now in hand and the evidence they needed, Samuel and Evelyn felt the realization crash over them like waves on a stormy sea. Lucas's reign of terror was crumbling, and Evelyn's innocence was no longer in question. The police arrived just in the nick of time, bursting into the gallery, led by none other than Daniel, Samuel's trusted friend. "We got your call," Daniel said, relief washing over his face as he simultaneously took in the chaos around them. As the officers apprehended Lucas's associates and gathered evidence, Samuel and Evelyn exchanged a look filled with gratitude and determination. Yet, as the dust settled and the weight of the moment enveloped them, Samuel sensed a lingering tension within himself, a worry that clung to him like a shadow. They may have outsmarted Lucas this time, but his threats loomed on the horizon. With Evelyn finally cleared, Samuel knew he now stood at the crossroads, facing a choice that could alter the course of his life once more. As they stepped outside into the cold night air, the weight of their shared history hung between them, filled with the haunting realization that love, like justice, often comes at a cost. In the wake of their emotional reunion at the airport, filled with promises of a fresh start, Samuel and Evelyn embark on their new chapter together in a quaint art restoration studio nestled between vibrant streets and art galleries, a world far removed from the chaos they once knew. The transformation of the space reflects their journey, with sunlight pouring through the large windows, illuminating the meticulous work they pour their hearts into. Each stroke of their brushes is marked with determination, healing them as they restore pieces of art long forgotten, much like their own love story. Their days are a blend of laughter and shared glances, saturating even the most innocuous of moments with warmth as they rediscover each other amid the canvas of their new life. However, just as their lives seem to settle into a peaceful rhythm, a seemingly innocuous package arrives at the studio, an anonymous delivery. As Samuel carefully opens it, his expression shifts from curiosity to concern when he unveils a beautifully restored painting that contains hidden clues alluding to the web of deception that once tried to ensnare them. Intrigued and apprehensive, they realize that the shadows of the past might not be as distant as they believed. With a flicker of resolve in their eyes, they embrace the challenge ahead, setting a path that promises not just the revival of forgotten artistry but also an unveiling of greater truths that link their pasts to a broader conspiracy still lurking in the shadows. Just as they step into their resolve, a barely noticeable figure watches from outside, a smirk playing on their lips, hinting that this is not yet the end of their saga. The thrill lingers in the air, leaving questions hanging in the balance. Could the ghosts of yesterday reshape their carefully crafted future, or could Samuel and Evelyn finally break free from the chains of their past? The answer teeters on the edge of possibility, echoing the sentiment that love, while strong, may not be enough against the onslaught of secrets still waiting to unfold. And as the scene fades out, one undeniable truth lingers: some stories, even when thought to be concluded, may just be ready to ignite once more. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to Happiness of Love. That way, you won't miss any of our heartfelt romances. See you in the next love story.